What's shaking, everybody? My name is Ross Mandell. I'm coming to you guys live today. Delray Beach, Florida. I'm at Scott Woolley Studios. I have a genuine treat today. This guy is a beast. He is a financial beast. He's a ninja. He's a martial artist. He's been training for, I don't want to say 50 years, but I believe it's right around that vicinity. They call him Amo, James Amo Amorosi. He's a legitimate Wall Street veteran. He's got a private equity fund, a legacy fund. He's got a partner like Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank, Darren Prince. These are real guys, if you don't know. And we're going to welcome James Amo Amorosi to the podcast. James, how are you today?
Doing excellent, Ross. Thank you so much for having me on, and I appreciate the great intro very much.
Oh, it's exciting to meet you. You know, we've never met, right? We've never spoken. I want to make sure that the world knows that up front.
Yes, this is our first time. I've heard a lot about you, all good things, and I was very excited to come on and chat with you and get to know you.
Very cool. And, there's a big buildup. When I make an introduction, I like to put our best foot forward. But in your case, I mean, you went down to the street and you trade, you invest. You know, anybody that's been down or in that business, you know, I went down to the street in 1983. I'm not sure if you've been around that long, but I'm not sure you haven't been. And you built and sold more than 60 companies, and you currently have this legacy fund, which we want to hear all about. And for me, you're a lifelong martial artist, and I have dabbled in martial arts, mixed martial arts, trained with some of the best in the world. I had a dojo in my house before I went to federal prison, but I've been a wrestler, I've been a boxer, trained in jiu-jitsu. So tell us about James. How old a guy are you today, James?
How old am I?
Yeah, today.
61. I'll be 62 in a week. Exactly.
All right. Well, happy almost. I could be your uncle, just so you know. I could be, your big brother. But I love to always dial the clock back and let the audience know, like, really who you are, where you came from, what life was like, where you grew up, your parents, what kind of family, all these different things. So just start telling us about your life.
Well, if I go way back, I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, which is very similar to Brooklyn.
Okay.
Very ethnic, very ethnic. I grew up in a really Italian area.
Italian, right? Italian, you said.
Yeah, Italian area,
Okay.
very traditional. My grandparents on my father's side are from Italy. Came over, some second generation. Grew up very, very cultured in the old school Italian way. You know, family first. You take care of your family, your friends. Macaroni and meatballs every Sunday.
So macaroni, not spaghetti, right?
No, not pasta. It's macaroni,
and it's macaroni with gravy, not sauce.
And it was a great upbringing. Very unique. I grew up around a lot of wise guys, and I was born a man. I was never a kid.
Interesting.
I never was a kid. That being a kid bored me. I was always hanging out with guys, men, at a very young age. They intrigued me, the wisdom, the knowledge. I was around gangsters growing up. They'd had bands of, hundreds rolled up and caddies and all custom suits. And, my father always wore custom suits and custom shoes. And so I always had a really an interesting sense of style.
What did your dad do, if you don't mind me asking? Was your dad a wise guy?
No, he wasn't, but his brother was. My Uncle Tommy was the president of the Italian American Civil Rights League in Newark.
Of course he was. Of course he was.
Yeah, of course he was. And he was with a very famous guy locally and somewhat nationally. His name was Tony Imperiali. he was a crazy dude, Italian guy. Off the boat, he was known for uh, being like he was very stood up for the Italians. He drove down Bloomfield Avenue in Newark in a tank to make a point. And my uncle was paisans with him, and they were really good friends. But my uncle was an interesting guy because he was a detective and a wise guy. Back then, you could be both,
Right.
if you recall,
Of
right?
course.
I don't know where you grew up, Ross, but back then,
Yeah, I grew up in a nice area in the Five Towns, but a lot of wise guys made their way there. It's even in the Goodfellas. Joe Pesci is dating a girl in the Five Towns, a Jew, and what's his name? Henry Hill is with his woman came
yeah,
from my neighborhood, and so I
that's
grew up.
funny.
I grew up across the street from Gerald from Curatola Brothers Trucking, and I remember his dad
That's it.
went did some Fed time when we were growing up, and Jim Curatola went away for a bit. Um, but it was like a big scandal in my neighborhood. Now I'm the biggest scandal from the Five Towns. I've surpassed
Well,
all of these cats. But no, I get it, and there's a fascination with true crime, and I just want you to know I married Stephanie Sarno from the Bronx, and she grew up in a house where everybody spoke Italian. It was both. It was a three-family house. Both sets of her grandparents lived under one roof, and her
yeah.
her father was Carmine, and her mother was Rosalie, and the brother was Carmine Jr. And there
Oh
was
boy.
Joni Ann, Lori Ann, and Stephanie Ann. And I'm sitting right now in Delray Beach, Florida, and the man calling my shots is named John DeZuro, and he's a Sicilian. You don't want to get him angry.
Well, it's interesting you say that because my grandmother was from Sicily. She was uh, Palermo, Sicily. Very, very.
Oh boy,
She was a hot in that part of Italy, Sicily. You fear the women more than the men. My grandmother was crazy. I mean, she was tough. And my grandfather was Napolitan. He was from Naples, and I grew up with them. I had the pleasure of being with them all the time because my parents worked. Even my mother worked back then. It was interesting, and I learned to speak Sicilian dialect,
wow,
Napolitan dialect. Yeah, and ultimately I learned how to speak proper Italian. But it was a very interesting upbringing because Ross, it was I lived in this little bubble in the city, and tough neighborhood. I was taught not to ever trust anybody.
wow,
If anybody disrespected you, you handle business.
get
And
it.
not always with words. And people weren't allowed in the neighborhood, and so I grew up in a crazy way. I mean, I literally saw. I remember being 7 years old, and I saw someone get shot right in front of me in the street. It was one of the wise guys. And my uncle had a kind of like a breakfast joint, but right across the street he had a social club,
I get it.
and he had a social club, and it was crazy. He would pull up in his detective car. It was just back then. It was very different. Um, I grew up in the '60s, which was very. There was a lot of racial tension.
Oh yeah,
There was race riots. There
oh
was
yeah.
tremendous race
I
riots.
I, I lived through that stuff, even in school and everything.
I was young, but I lived through it,
I
and
was
I
actually in like middle
experienced.
school and high school, and
Yeah,
I lived through all that stuff, bro. It
I was
was
in
it was no, it
elementary.
was no joke. I'm gonna say,
No joke. Listen to me. I would walk through the neighborhood, and I would find what they call blackjacks. It was like the bottom part of a golf hole flag. They cut it off because it was fiberglass and lead. That little piece that went into the hole was
wow,
lead
yes,
and had
yes,
an edge
yes,
on it. And they would just put black tape on the end. I would find these things in the shrubbery walking home, and
wow.
it was very, very violent, aggressive. I grew up in that environment. I tell you, Ross, it was. I couldn't imagine my kids growing up in that now, the way they are.
Trust me
We
when I
lived out in
tell
the
you,
nice suburbs. It's a different world.
Where do you live now? Where are you sitting?
I live in Jersey now,
Okay, whereabouts?
and I live in Morris County, up in Randolph and Mendham area.
Okay.
Um, it's a beautiful area. I mean, it's
Oh,
absolutely
it's
gorgeous.
beautiful.
It's at the highest point in New Jersey, the highest
I
peak.
get it.
Um, it's gorgeous. I lived in the city for a dozen years. When I worked on a street, as a young man, I loved it. But my upbringing really set the stage for my whole life. And my father was very tough, man. He would fly off the handle. Very hot-headed Italian. Um, he was different, but he was typical and very different. He had both. He had this typical Italian way about him, but he was different. He was wild. And my mother, who's not Italian,
Oh,
um,
okay.
yeah, she's not Italian. I'm half Italian, but
What's her
she
background?
grew up. She is French, English, and half American Indian, which is the strangest mix. I mean,
It's
she's
really your dad went off the reservation, proverbially.
it it went off the
He really,
reservation, bro. I
I mean,
mean,
today it's
so
nothing, but back then the family probably was like, what's going on?
my my grandmother didn't like my mother for a
Oh, I
long
can't even
time.
imagine. There was
Only Italian, you know
only
what I mean? She
Italian.
wanted only Italian, and
I
but
want you
my
to
mother
know, in
was
my
like,
wife's family, I was the first and only Jew. I want you to understand. And
you're
when
you're you're like an Italian though. You grew up
I
like an
grew up like
Italian.
that, but when I was first introduced to the family, Stephanie actually worked for me. I owned a brokerage firm in Midtown Manhattan. I was a front page Wall Street Journal. They wrote a really lambasted me, a really really huge story. And we were seeing each other on the sly, and she's like, "It's time you meet my family." And I'm like, she goes, just my immediate family. I said, I don't want to go to some big thing. I walk in, we go down to the basement of her house in the Bronx, and there's like 45, almost 50 people there. And I turned around and said, you said your immediate family? She goes, this is my immediate family. And grandma, Nanny, comes up to me and says, you're a Jew. She goes, we know a Jew. We knew a Jew. Come on. You remember that Jew that lived in the building on the floor? Who was very nice. Look, he's a Jew. Screaming like that. And I was like, thank God I was older, more mature and calm, because of the business. But, people don't understand the sort of craziness that we came from. And I think it's crazy now. That, you
I
know,
think it's good.
back
I agree.
then
Back then was
we were
was
all sort of
normal.
like immigrants, and we were all integrating into the society. There's a lot of immigrants that come here today that don't want to immigrate into our society.
True. The truth.
They're
You
standoffish. They're
know,
like, they want to bring Sharia law, let's say, or something like that, to this country. And we're like, what?
it's a difficult. I don't struggle, but I don't. I realize how different I am, how different I grew up,
Yeah,
and people in our generation grew up. And I just had this conversation the other day, and I said, when I grew up, it was better than now.
I
It was
agree.
much simpler, simple.
I agree. And I understand you because of where you came from, in my opinion. You know what I mean? I grew up with guys just like you in my neighborhood. You know, I would love to go over there on a Sunday. There's a comedian, Sebastian Maniscalco, and he says, Jews. He goes, no food. They don't eat.
His wife's his wife's a Jew.
Right. We go
His,
to the
his
Italians
wife's
and we want to eat. My family, my in-laws, didn't have much money. But let me just tell you,
no.
they could feed the whole neighborhood at the drop of a hat any day, morning, noon, and night.
Ross. It's funny because our neighborhood, we didn't lock the doors in our house or our car.
I get it.
Like we would double park and leave a key in it so someone could move it in case you were parked
I
next to them. They'd
get
move
it.
your car up.
Not
It's like it
today.
was like forget it now. You know, with technology, and I'm not, listen. I've been in technology my whole career since I've been in my started on the street.
As an
Everything's
investor,
tech,
correct?
right? Yeah, as a trader, as an
Right.
investor, portfolio manager, and that was fine. But when these things came into light, when these things came
Yep.
around, everything changed.
I agree with that.
And in both 06 or '08. remember the BlackBerry came out from the BlackBerry,
I love the BlackBerry.
and they called it a PDA, personal data system.
Correct.
When I saw that, Ross, I said to the staff, I had a big staff for time. I said, guys, listen, we had a big meeting. I used to pull the nights at a round table. And I said, listen, this here you think is the best thing since sliced bread. I said, but it's not. It's going to slow production down, I think, between 35 and 65% because it's gonna preoccupy us. It's not going to just feed us data like a computer. And I remember saying, I have guys with me 35 years, 25 years of work for me. And they say, you know what, you're right. Ammo, you're right. It did slow production. It slows production down. Everybody gets distracted. Everybody's on the phone as they drive. And I just see such a deviation from when I grew up. And I really, the older I get, the more I cherish my childhood, the way I grew up. It was crazy. Sure, so people get shot, stabbed, and then killed. I mean, it wasn't. I would never want anybody to experience that, but it did. It did set the framework of who I am, and I was different though, boss. I saw a Bruce Lee movie when I was 7 years old. I saw Return of the Dragon when he's in Rome, and he fights Chuck Norris. Remember that one?
The
Did you
best.
see that?
Yeah, I
One
grew
of
up.
the best.
I was his big. I was his biggest fan. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I lived in this Italian neighborhood. Everybody was Italian. Everybody had, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, all the Italian
I
guys on
get
their
it.
walls, I had Bruce Lee, Sonny Chiba, I had all these Asian guys on my
I
wall.
get it.
I would wear Chinese clothes around the neighborhood. The guys would shake their head. They're like, James, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? I'm like, listen, I love the martial arts. This is what I do. And I remember my father used to shake his head. He goes, you're very different. He goes, don't ever change that about yourself. And it always stuck in my head. He
I
said
love
that to
that.
me.
Great advice. Great fatherly advice.
Yeah, yeah.
What?
And
What?
I
What?
really feel
How
like
old were you when you started in martial arts? How old were you?
seven,
You started what? Karate?
7 years.
Karate or?
I started jujitsu. I started in jujitsu. I learned in Newark from a guy who came back from Japan in Okinawa. He was a Marine, and
Wow.
he learned like traditional Japanese jujitsu. It
Wow.
wasn't like Brazilian jujitsu.
Right.
So I learned that, but it was street. He turned it into street because he grew up in Newark. He was a street guy, and it was wild. I studied that till I was about 12, 13. I got a black belt in that, and it was not easy, but I got a black belt in that. And at that time, I was a fighter. I was going to school in a neighborhood that was not. I was a minority in the school I went to.
Oh,
There was a lot
really?
of black people.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of black people in school I went to, and I would fight every day, 2, 3 times a day. I would go to the bathroom and fight. I was fighting. And the irony is, my best friend was a black kid, George, and and I never had a bias. I just saw people for who they are, and it was a tough upbringing. I was a fighter, so and then I started getting enamored by the wise guys with the money. And my father and mother said, you know what, little man, it's time to move out of here. It's time
Wow.
to get out. So they moved us from Newark, New Jersey to Livingston, New Jersey. I don't know if you're familiar
Okay.
with Livingston.
I do. I
You know
know.
Livingston?
I do because I went to school at the University of Maryland. My sophomore year, I transferred from Albany, and when I went to University of Maryland, it was so many people from northern New Jersey. You know what I mean? I mean, it was just an unbelievable Englewood Cliffs. Teaneck. I mean, I could go on and on, and so I really got to know and hang out with a really Jersey crowd. I don't know why, but that school was pretty close. It was a convenient drive. People from Philly so
Yes.
my Long Island world, all of a sudden, which was Long Island, South Shore, North Shore, Brooklyn, Bronx, all of a sudden now I'm engaging with all these people from New Jersey and Philadelphia and that area. And it was very cool because I noticed that each
Mm.
area, at least when you're younger, right, and you're going through your teenage years, etc., had certain things about them. Like, I mean, And remember, I was in the 70s. It was the disco era, John Travolta, all the Brooklyn discos. I know it had an effect on your
with the
life.
with the long with the long collar, with the long
All of it.
collar.
The chains, you know what I mean? I had an Italian horn, a Brazilian figa, all of it. You know what I mean? And depending on who I was hanging out with and where we were going, I would change. I would wear a Jewish thing, an Italian thing, a Brazilian
I
thing.
love it.
That's who
Y-
I
y-
was. I just wanted to, you know, meet women and have fun and enjoy life. I wasn't really a
You
kid
know,
that really worried a lot. I just
it's
lived.
funny. I love that because that free spirit. We Livingston was predominantly Jewish,
Yeah, I know. I get it.
and
Back
it was
then, yeah,
at least 50% Jewish, old school
I
Jews, like
get it.
very like old school street guys. A lot of Brooklyn guys coming
Yep,
over, and to get in the suburbs and live a better life. And so when I moved there, my best friend became a kid named Steve Goldman, right? And I'm used to, Italian. I thought the whole world was Italian and black, some Spanish
I get
people.
it.
Like that's how I grew up
I
in
get
this
it.
little bubble. So when I went there, I learned about the Jewish culture, about school and studying and money and finance, and it really changed my life. When I moved there, um, I met another Jewish kid, Larry Callan. He was crazy. He was probably like the way you were when you were younger. Larry was like, he would wear the five chains. My father, when you said that, I laughed my ass off. My father used to wear a Jewish star. I used to laugh my ass off.
I
He
love
had an
it.
Italian horn and a Jewish star. I used to
I
laugh.
I
We
love
used
it.
to be, because a lot of our friends were Jewish,
I get it.
and like, one of my friends gave him, Larry Callan gave my father a Jewish star. My father wore it. I used to laugh my ass off. And he bought my father bought Larry a Italian horn. It was crazy, and I really had a beautiful, like, go moving there. Really exemplified a meld of cultures,
Yep, I get
because
it.
with Jews and Italians always say they're very similar. They are. They're very different and very
Very
similar.
similar.
And they have the same, very similar value structure: family, friends, loyalty, try to be honorable. But when I moved there, that really changed for me. I really started getting into martial arts on the next level. I started studying a style called Kyoshinkai. Very strong karate. Like, really, like the strongest. To this day, it's probably the biggest karate system in the world.
Wow.
And yeah, the biggest. They probably have 30 million members
Wow.
worldwide. And it's big. It's big in Eastern Europe because it's tough. It's brutal. It's
And
brutal.
those Eastern
So I
Europeans
started
are
studying.
tough.
Tough,
The
tough. I
toughest,
started
really.
studying this thing. I think about the way they used to train back then. I was 13, 14 years old. They used to beat the heck out of us. I mean, I remember it was called ki practice. You'd stand in horse stance with your hands out to the side and they kick you in the stomach, like, knock you back 10 feet. You come, like me and Larry, you like train with Larry. we didn't, we didn't care. Like nowadays, forget it. They'd lock you up,
Oh,
throw the key away forever.
everything
That's the
today is so.
problem.
Everything today is so
That's
screwy.
the problem.
I
It's
get
too
it. Well,
soft.
they're trying to take away. I believe there's an underlying worldwide effort to weaken America, and like Rome, nobody could defeat Rome's armies. But you know what? The way to break down someone like that is to break him down from the inside. Where you got men wearing dresses and men using the ladies'
Yep.
room, and this whole transgender
It's
movement, etc. I mean, this whole you know masculine. Everybody gets a medal in a game. A participate. If you think about all the things that they've been trying to sell through our own media, and the foreigners just want to weaken us. And when you look at their cultures, look at the Chinese, the discipline that with these communists, they run everything. Look at the Islamic countries. You can't say anything if you're a citizen. There's no crime. You know why? They just kill you. They disappear you, your family. They take your hands off, your arms off. But these same people deploy their money, their assets into our society to weaken us, to soften us, just like they did. Rome melted down from the inside. So when the Huns
And
came at one point, there was no defense because they were busy, drinking and smoking and fornicating, and I mean, they used to have vomitoriums attached to the estates. Did you know that? A
I'm
vomitorium,
aware.
so they could eat,
Glut-
drink, puke your guts up in the vomitorium, and then come right back and continue again.
Crazy.
What a
Crazy.
shock that the Huns just walked right over them.
Uh,
The armies
well,
were like steel. The armies could not be touched. And that's what they've done to America. And that's what they're in the middle of trying to do. And why, Trump, you can say what you want about him, but, he's trying to change that. I don't know if it's too late or not. I hate to say it. I don't know if America's hit its, if we were stock,
Ross,
we're on the downside.
yeah, I contemplate that a
Yeah,
lot.
me too.
For many reasons. Personally, socially, financially, from an economic perspective, I analyze. I try to stay out of politics because it's a loser.
I agree with you.
But we do live in a society that's like I remember growing. Here's a perfect example of our childhood, right? I remember my family was Democrats. They were all Democrats.
I get it.
Right? They were Democrats. Back then, you were a Democrat. You were a blue collar guy. You
Yep.
worked, whatever.
Yep.
And you could have an opinion. It didn't matter.
Correct.
Everybody respected the other person's opinion.
Correct.
You were allowed to have an opinion. And then when this nonsense started 10 years ago, where you weren't allowed to have an opinion,
Nope.
where the left could have an opinion, the right couldn't, or the right could have, and it went back. Well, I'm neither right or left. I'm a libertarian, but I do have an opinion, and I do agree with you that there's an underlying
Malady.
element,
It's like a disease.
yeah,
It's a
underlying
malady.
element to try to confuse. I feel like as I get older, I studied. Most of you ever know how much I've studied about economics and Zen, and I study my knowledge base is very eclectic.
I get it.
But I studied. I have 1,500 books in martial arts. I have probably 1,000 books on Wall
I
Street.
can't even
trading.
imagine.
And you can't, if you have any kind of intellect, you can't sit back and say things haven't changed, and probably not for the better, right?
I get it.
And I feel like it's unfortunate with COVID. I have my opinion about that. I thought they brought that on to confuse people. I could tell you this, Ross. I've had dojos for 35 years. I started my first dojo in 1992. I was deep into Wall Street at the time. I was working for a big hedge fund called Tudor Investments.
Yeah, I want to get to
Huge
that.
hedge fund.
John Paul Jones,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, well, Paul Tudor Jones.
I meant Paul Tudor Jones. Paul Tudor Jones. Sorry about that.
I started one around that time, and I've always used the dojo as a barometer for economics. We used to have when you have a big hedge fund, you have billions of dollars under management. You're making hundreds of millions of dollars. You could hire anybody. You got more money than God.
Correct.
You could hire the best. We had the smartest people working for us, and they would do all this analysis. And I studied economics. I'm an economist by education.
I get it.
And they would hit me with all their all these formulas and their theory, and I would base the economy on my dojo.
I understand.
I had dojos in very affluent areas. And I knew if a Jewish person wasn't willing to spend $150 or $200 a month on their kid for martial arts, the economy was not doing well.
Right. There's a real issue right there. I get it.
It was simple. It was in the trenches, real people. You know what I mean?
All the Harvard and MIT and Wharton analysis. Guess what? I'm a real life guy. I go to places. I talk to people. I do my thing in the mall, and I form opinions. And whenever I go work with my gut, I'm always right. People tell me I don't have data and figures. Guess what? And right now things are not great.
Things are not great.
No one's hiring.
And I will use the dojo as a barometer, not just for economics,
I love it.
but socio.
I get
economics.
I 100% get it. I get it.
And I know I'm jumping around, but when COVID hit, it was probably 2021 around that time when it was in the height of COVID foolishness. Now, mind you, I got back in the hedge fund business around 2020, the whole thing. I got out because I went through a rough divorce. I got out of my private equity fund and then got back into hedge funds and then got back into private equity. But I was going in and out of the city during COVID. I never stopped. But I recall one of my instructors calling me. He's with me 25 years. He calls me up. Sensei Frank Schobener. He says, Shihan, Mikhail Shihan, or Shihan, I need to talk to you. I said, Sensei, what's wrong? He said, I have a young girl here. She's 11 years old, and she's telling me she's binary. Now, that was a new term at the time.
Right.
I go, well, explain to me what binary is. He goes, she's not a male or a female. And I said, well, let's stop there for a minute. Right? We're martial artists, so we got to be open-minded. She's confused. She's listening to stupid information, okay? Stupid information, because you get any kind of justification on this, right?
I'm dying. You're killing me.
And I said, you explained to her that whether she believes in God or not, man was made with women. It was a man and a woman, and that was it. There was no in between. There was no, so I had to explain to him. I said, don't push it because they're young and they're fragile and I don't want to hurt them because they're our students. I love my students. I said, but you got to kind of flow with it and try to get them back to nature made a man and a woman. There's very few creatures on this planet who are both. I think a frog can have both female and male sex organs.
Yeah.
But that's about it. I said, and we're not frogs. I said, so my point is,
unless you identify as a frog. Aha, you see? I got you. I mean, I'm telling you, that's how crazy. Just believe, let me tell you, I was in prison. Crazy. And they were like, they had a form. And the guy would say, so what is your gender? And I'm like, bro, I've been down 6 years. Have I changed that much? To Mr. Mandell, I'm sorry, but I have to ask these questions. I said, you're serious? He goes, we have meetings and we have to fill out forms. It's the federal government. I was in the feds. And he says, let me show you. And he turns the paper over. And there's 8 boxes.
Yeah.
Do you hear me? This is on a federal form. 8 boxes.
I hear you.
And he has to ask me, they torture you in prison. But when it comes to your gender in the last 10 years, they're afraid of you. They're like, and it says binary, non-binary, furry. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. And then there's a box. Listen, James, there's 8 boxes, and the last box, 7 boxes, and the last box is other. What the fuck? What the fuck? And we don't even know if they were men, women, half transsexual. They had it. They didn't have it. It was like, and they had their own cell. They got their own cell. And then there were men that said they were women because they wanted to go to female prisons. And this stupid government, people in charge, allowed that to happen. Then you had guys raping women. But I just want to roll the clock back. I want you to talk about business because you're known as a really competent businessman. And we haven't figured out how you learned. So you leave, you're in Livingston, you're growing up, right? And I don't know if you went to college.
That changed everything for me.
Right. I don't know if you went to college. Did you go to college?
No, I did. I went to Rutgers. I got a degree in
Rutgers,
economics.
Okay. And then how'd you end up trading, on the Mercantile Exchange?
Well,
tell us about that.
I went to college and I didn't want to go. I went for my father. I was playing football. I was a really good athlete.
How tall are you?
And
I can't tell sitting down. How tall are you?
5'10", but I was 215 back then. I was like,
Okay.
Now I'm 185 pounds.
Perfect though, for your size.
Yeah, I feel good. I feel really good.
You look great, by the way.
Thank you.
You really look
likewise. Good. But I went to school for my father. I hated school.
I get it.
And Steve Goldman was my best friend, like for decade. Like I was in his wedding.
I get it. I get it.
He married. But my point is, he was really smart, and I never knew how smart he was till after. He worked for some of the biggest funds in the world. Super smart guy. So I flunked out of school purposely because I wanted to go to Japan I wanted to go to Japan to fight.
I like it.
All I wanted to do was fight. So I went to Japan for 3 years to fight.
Did you really?
And yeah, I lived over there in what they call an uchi deshi. All you do is train. Lived in a Zen temple for 6 months, meditated. Could you imagine this Italian guy from North meditating for 6, 8 hours a
How
day?
about Steven Seagal? It's like you're living his life a little bit, right?
Yeah, very similar. I loved it. I was really different. I knew that I was either reincarnated from a samurai. I was too uh, enamored by the Japanese culture, specifically
I
Japanese.
love it
Even though I love
myself.
those,
I actually love that culture.
everything is an art. Everything has relevance and meaning. They put their spirit into everything they do.
Correct.
So I went there and I was fighting. I became a world champion. I was kicking ass
Wow.
and but I was hurt. I was banging up my body training. I was teaching like 4 or 5 hours a day, training 5, 6 hours. It was just beating my body up. So I said to Steve, I go, Steve, what are we going to do? He was in college. He was going to GW, George Washington University. He's like, I go, what are we going to do? He goes, we're going to be traders, right?
I love
He
it.
saw a movie. We're going to be traders. We started trading options. In about 4 months, we made 30 grand. I think purely luck, right? Purely luck. We scratched together 6 grand. We turned it to 30.
Right place, right
And
time.
I fell in love with trading. I'm like, you know what? Done. So when I came home, I, I, I knew a friend of mine, Brian Tracy, on the floor of the Mercantile Exchange, and I went there one day. My whole career is very unorthodox, just so you know. I didn't go to college, come out, get an
I
interview, go
get
get
it.
a
I
job.
get it. I get it.
Mine was totally, you know, very unconventional. So I went there, and I thought I could walk on. I realized they have armed guards there. You can't walk onto the exchange.
I get
It's
it.
it's a.
I
So
understand.
I said, oh, shit. I turn around. I go, you know what? But I observed. I watched the guys walking in, how they walk in. Some had an attaché, some had a briefcase, and they walk in, and they used to dress a little better back then in the
Yeah, of
80s. It was
course.
like the late 80s, and I decided to go back next week at a suit and tie with a briefcase. Nothing in a briefcase. I snuck on. When a group came on, you had to have a badge to get on,
Yep,
the
yep, yep,
badge,
yep.
your badge. I didn't have any of that. But a group of guys, like 4 or 5 guys, started walking in. I walked in with them on the elevator, got by the security guard, went upstairs. I went into the bathroom, threw my briefcase away, and I go, I gotta find Brian before I get arrested. I ran onto the floor. I started looking all over the place. I'm like, who, Brian Tracy? Anyway, long story short, I found him right there. I said, Brian, you got to get me a job. He introduced me to this other guy. You ready for this? Frankie Barbarino from Brooklyn. And he worked for a company called Barnes and Company out of Chicago. And they were big at Chicago's the commodity capital
Correct,
of the
correct,
world.
correct.
So he introduced me. I got a job, and I started working on the phones, and I was really good at it. I went from the phones right into like the pit, and I didn't. It's not that I didn't like it because it was rugged, but I wanted to be bigger than this. I knew the restrictions of the pit trading, and I knew your voice
I
goes, and
get it.
a lot of these guys get beat up physically. So I wanted to getting a job with a company called, you remember Refco? You remember
Of
Refco?
course.
All right, the
I
largest
do.
FCM
100%.
futures yeah, the largest FCM under the tutelage of one man. So I got a job there as a currency trader. Never traded currencies before. I was a currency, crazy,
Okay.
but I loved it. And we would fill orders for Tudor, Soros, Bacon, Louis Bacon, Moore, all the big hedge funds. We would fill orders for them. And I started reading every day. I fell in love with Soros at the time. Like he was like, God at the time. In the 90s,
Brilliant.
Soros was like it.
Brilliant. Yeah, he was
He
brilliant.
was Stanley
Brilliant.
Druckenmiller, who worked for him. And I had a friend, Marco, who worked for Stanley Druckenmiller for Duquesne Capital, his hedge fund. And I became really good friends with him. And I started working for Tudor. I got a job at Tudor. I won't get into the semantics of how I got that job, but it was unorthodox. Um, it was a dream though. It was
Okay.
a dream to work for him because he was it. He was a rock star, super smart, killed the markets, made
100%.
hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm like,
Yep.
I want to be him. So I used to send them letters. I would never get a call back. I had a friend of mine, this Israeli girl called Gabriella. She was a headhunter. Long story short, she got me an interview with them, and I interviewed with Peter Borish, and I got a job with them, and that was like that was the pinnacle of my career. I'm working for one of the top 4 largest hedge funds in the world as a trader, portfolio manager. I made it. I'm done. I'm good. Keep my head on it. And from there, I just parlayed that.
So
Then I
you're
went for
learning
another
for the
work for another.
audience.
What's that?
For the audience, I want to make it clear for our audience. Our audience is might not be as sophisticated sitting here as you and I chop it up, right? So you learned the art of buying something and selling it at a profit, or taking a quick loss, right? Your first loss is your best loss.
Yes.
Or selling something,
Sometimes
shorting something, and buying it back cheaper
I learned.
because you saw an opportunity. You saw
Well,
a price opportunity, right? So
it's
this is what
interesting you say
trading
that.
really is, correct?
Well, yeah, this is trading. I mean, I when I left Tudor, I went to another hedge fund, and the guy taught me how to short the market. Next level, you're the master.
Correct.
We had Soros money. We had Soros money at 100 million on the short side. We were like his hedge for the market, and he
Get it.
taught me how to short the market. S&Ps, the SPOOs, and again, like you said, your viewers may not understand this, but it's simple as buying and selling something. Sometimes in the markets that I worked in, you can sell something before you buy it with the expectation that the price is going to go down, right?
Right. You think
They're
it's going to go down,
contracts.
so you play the short side. There were ways
Exactly.
to bet, let's say, or invest or trade.
Yep.
Either if you think it's going to go up or you think it's going to go down. Right. You have that opportunity when you
You
become
can
a trader, when you
play either side.
have a fund, right? Because
Yeah,
typically prices go down 7 times or so faster than they go up on average,
that's right.
depending on the
We make more money
situation.
on the downside than the upside because it's faster.
I try to tell people don't know, because I've owned a couple of brokerage firms and some funds. You always trade from the short side if you have a firm. And I've had to get into these technical conversations to try and explain, because 98% of everybody that is currently invested in the market has never shorted a stock and doesn't even really know what it means. And yet every
Yeah.
professional shorts you the stock. They're not actually buying it for you. They're shorting it to you. And then they're going to the market and trying to buy it a little cheaper. You don't understand.
Exactly.
But I just want to get these
Yeah.
words out there so I could field questions and DMs and comments and thoughts, because people want to learn. And listening to a podcast where Ross Mandell is talking to James Amorosi, I mean, this is a real privilege for somebody that wants to learn about our business, right? Which is financial, asset management, etc. You know what I'm saying?
Financial literacy. I mean, they could follow me on Instagram too. I talk a lot about um, everything finance,
Me
from
too.
trading
It's
to
really great.
investing to. So they can do that, and I field messages and I try to educate people. I'm a teacher. I'm a martial artist before I'm anything. So I'm a teacher, and I love that. It's something I love doing. But yeah, I think the market is something that's intimidating to the average person. They get they have a fear of losing money, and I tell them all the time, it's like anything. I say you just got to get a little educated to it,
Correct.
and it's really not as complex as you think it is. It's not as complicated as you think it is. You keep it simple, and in the immortal words of Steve Goldman, he always used to say, "Ammo, simplify the complexity," and it was truth. And I think that investing in trading for people, they get overwhelmed. It's not. It's complicated. It's complex, but you can keep something very simple. You could have a simple trading system that actually worked consistent.
Correct.
And
And
out.
I've seen many. I've seen many during the course of my life, and you have. Let me ask you a question. So I want to keep this moving. So you you started out after you left Rutgers, right? You and Brian, whatever, you got a job. You started working for somebody in the business. You didn't have a trust fund and went
No,
down to the street and said, I'm going to learn how to trade my own money, right? You were working, right?
I came from nothing.
I
My
get it.
family, I wish my father was a wise guy. We wouldn't have struggled like we did. You know what I mean?
I get it.
And and I came from nothing. I grew up in a two family house. There was five of us on one floor. My father would always struggle to pay the bills.
Yep.
You know, he when we moved to Livingston, it was a big move for them, and they put all their life into that house.
I get it.
Back then, they probably bought the house for 30 grand back then.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
I get it. My parents
And
paid $32,000 for their house in in the 60s.
but
But here's what I
they
want. Here's
killed
the point.
themselves.
The point I want to make is, young men that come from nothing can still get a job in finance on Wall Street, in the Commodities Exchange, the Mercantile Exchange in Chicago, et cetera, the Philadelphia Options Exchange. There are jobs to be had if you want to get hired, and you could go and you could hustle, and you have a chance to get into this world that you and I have sort of lived in our whole lives. So now you've worked, you got yourself hired, right? You moved around, right? You went to work for a few different places, including Tudor Jones, which is like the pinnacle.
Yeah,
Druckenmiller. You're talking about
huge
the most famous names in the history of finance. At some point,
monster.
you went on your own. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. So in 2000, like around late 1990s, um, I started to like my entrepreneurial spirit kicked in, and I would start like really looking at companies. I went from Tudor to another company called Rand Management, and that's where I learned how to short the market. They were another big hedge fund, and we had Soros money. Very interesting, very great experience. I mean, I learned high finance at the highest level, but I had an entrepreneur spirit. I started my dojo in 1992. Didn't care if I made a penny because I was making so much money on Wall Street.
I get it.
I opened it just to bring my friends over from Japan and Europe and everywhere. I had friends all over the world because I lived all over the world on the floor.
We call it a lifestyle investment today. It's a lifestyle
100%
investment.
lifestyle investment.
Who cares what
But I love my dojo.
I love it.
And then I realized that, I can make this a business. And I did. We never lost money. My sister and my mother ran the dojo for me because I didn't want to get involved with the business.
I get it.
It would take away the spirit behind it.
I understand. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. But I could tell you, Ross, when I left Rand at the end, I wanted to start my own private equity fund because I wanted to buy and sell companies.
I get it.
I didn't know really anything other than my finance, knowledge and common sense and my connections on buying and selling companies. But I knew enough. I studied everything. That's what I study. You want to talk about regular people who get a job? Just study.
Yep.
You don't even have to go to college. Study books, read,
right.
Educate yourself.
Today, everything's available in your fingertips. When I started on the street, we didn't even have computers. We didn't have 4 guys would share a Quotron, and you had to keep hitting refresh because it was a 15-minute delay. It was like a comedy compared to today. You got everything. I don't have to leave my house. I know more about the market than a professional did, 40 years ago.
So I would recommend that people study and do like I did. Then when I left that hedge fund, one of the principals backed me, gave me $20 million. I used 7 of my own, started a fund.
I love it.
In 2000. Yeah. And I ran that till I was, till 2016 when I got sick and I went through a rough divorce. I had a son who was my light, limelight. I went through a lot of tragedy and adversity from the moment I got married, which I called my marriage, my first marriage, the apocalypse. It was the beginning of the end.
Oh God, I'm sorry, bro. I get it.
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
I get it.
That was rough. And, but my son, like my brother passed away in 2004. He was my best friend.
Oh,
I mean,
God.
this guy was everything to me. He was 47 years old. I didn't have time to be crushed, but it hit me like 4 or 5 years later. I grew up, we didn't cry. You weren't allowed to cry. We didn't cry. My family didn't cry.
Yeah, it's
You know, you
today.
weren't,
Today, it's different today, right? We were like real men back in the
it's
day.
different. And it was, I mean, I was born a man. I never cried. We didn't do any of this stuff. But
I
I can tell
get
you,
it.
after my brother died, probably like 3, 4 years later, I started to cry. Like it hit me different. And my father passed away 2 years after. So I went through a tough time, and my son was born a couple of years after my brother died, and then my father died a couple of years after my son was born, and it was a very tumultuous time. I was very successful. I don't know how the hell I kept my act together, but I did. My martial arts training really helped me on the
Oh
highest
yes,
level,
you have an inner
and we
strength.
expanded
You have an inner strength when you have
spirit,
that sort of
spirit. Yeah,
foundation.
yeah, the spirit. Had a great family. I grew up really with a tremendous set of ethics and values. Where honor. I think your word means more than anything. You don't have. I mean, at the end of the day, I tell my family they could take everything that I have, all these material things, houses, cars, property, whatever it
I
is,
get it,
and leave me naked in the field. I still am James A.M. Weinberg. You can never take that from me. They'll never break me. I can't be broken.
James. They
And
they did that to me. They took everything away from me, including my clothes, and they put me naked and they put me in a room in a federal prison. Just so you know. So I get it, and like you, my spirit is strong, and God willing, I've been okay. He's protected me in some way, shape, or form because I have a strong belief in God and
so,
spirituality and all that stuff. But I want to understand. So you went through this divorce, you
yeah,
lost your brother, and
yeah. I lost my brother and father. Had a kid.
I mean
Had all
that's
these.
I mean
I had all these successes. I was making so much. I was printing money
I get it.
and living, a pretty good lifestyle. But I was not happy because I was not happy with my partner. And you know, um,
A bad marriage
I
is
didn't
the
want to
worst. A bad marriage is the way you
bad
come. It doesn't
worse
matter how good your day is. You come home and it's like a nightmare, right?
nightmare. I didn't want to come home. Only the reason I come home, I get my kid and go out for a ride with him. Me and him go to take a ride. He was my buddy. I really when he was born, you know I remember it was yesterday. I just committed myself to being the best father ever, like the best that I can be. Like I would do with martial arts and trading. I wanted to be the best.
I get it.
So I went all in with my son. And it's funny because I had the private equity. But in 2005, three of my colleagues who were from the hedge fund business, they were constantly nagging me to come back in the hedge fund business. And I'm like, I'm not coming back. All I did was breathe, eat, sleep trading and, money management. I lost relationships over it. And in '05, they got me back in. They made me an offer I couldn't refuse. I went back in and I told them under one condition. At the time, my son was going to be born. She was pregnant with him. And I said, I'll come in under one condition. I'm leaving at 3 o'clock to go see my son when he's in preschool because I'm picking him up at 4 o'clock.
Wow.
I'm not leaving when the market closes at 4. I said, I'll come in. But I say, guys, you know me, I'll work all night. My
Wow.
work ethic
But
is I
still,
work 24/7. So I did. And I did. I had the private equity fund and a hedge fund for a while. In '08, I bailed on the hedge fund because it was just too much for me.
I get it.
But I went through a tough time psychologically, emotionally. My sister was married to a guy, her first and only man she was ever with. He at the apocalypse at my wedding, they split up. It's literally the apocalypse, the beginning of the end. They split up at my wedding. I didn't even know it.
Listen,
And her kids were like my kids, and they went through tough
can I
times.
ask
They
you, did you
one
ever
got
get
messed.
remarried?
No, no, I am with a woman. I refer to her as my wife. I refer to her children as my children.
I
She has
get it.
3 of them. Um, um, I do plan on getting married again. I think I didn't do well with marriage, so it sits in my
Listen,
head. I don't like losing.
Listen, you have
You
a
know,
bad marriage. Listen, we're not kids anymore.
it
I
took a
have a
lot
lot
of
of friends, and we talk, and a lot of my friends forget it. They had a brutal divorce.
ooh,
Up
ooh,
and downs with the marriage, but just ended terribly. You get a bad
horrible.
taste in your mouth, and so it's okay to live with a woman. It's okay to raise children. It's okay to do all these good things. But the word marriage is now it's a business deal. It's a legally
See, that's
binding
that's how
business arrangement.
I see society, and you want to go full circle back to our conversation. Like you say, there's an underlying element in our society to bring. I feel like you know we're taught to go to school. This when we grow up, go to college, get a degree, get a job, get married, buy a house. You're always feeding the machine. It's all about feeding the machine. And looking back at things now, even now, like they have kids coming out of college and $200,000-300,000 worth of debt, feeding the system. They don't care how
Crazy.
much you
It's
pay as long as
crazy.
you're feeding the system. As long as you're paying the
Right.
system.
They can't get
And
a job. And they can't get a
and they
job.
can't get a job.
And
And
they owe 200-300 grand.
so circle back to where we're at now with the marriage thing. In my head, I feel like I didn't do a great job with marriage, and I feel like it wasn't my fault. That I look back at things and I knew what I was going through. I have a 19-year-old son who's my relationship struggles with him. He was everything to me, and I feel like it's something that you got to do when you feel it's right. In here, then in here.
I
And
get it. Now,
marriage.
I want to
And
flash forward now because clearly you've been through so many. You have so much life experience. We could talk for 7 or 8 straight hours and still,
believe so.
have an ongoing story. So I want to try and move forward a little bit because today I've looked at your Instagram, I've looked at your website, and you have a company called Legacy, right? It's the Legacy
The
Fund. Is
legacy
that?
fund.
And
Yep,
what
the
kind of
legacy
fund
fund.
is it? Is it a hedge fund? Is it a private equity fund? I couldn't tell really.
Private
What does the
equity.
fund do?
Uh, we buy and sell companies
Okay.
that meet certain criteria. I created this this private equity fund very different than the past ones. My partners are you mentioned Kevin Harrington. Kevin Harrington's an ultimate entrepreneur. He's a serial entrepreneur, but he's not a hedge
Correct.
fund or private equity guy. He's just an entrepreneur he's bought and sold. I mean, Kevin created the infomercial. I mean, back in MTV,
Right.
those days when we grew up, MTV, there was an extra channel. He started putting infomercials on it. So I brought
He's a
him in
smart
as a
business. He's a very smart business guy. Yeah. So
very
what is your
smart,
criteria for the what is your
astute
criteria for the
business
fund?
making.
What is your criteria for the fund?
Well, we have to, for this particular fund. I have other funds, but this particular fund
Right.
has you have to have at least 10 million in revenue. You got to be doing at
Okay.
least 2 to 4 million in EBITDA.
Okay.
And I look at the people running it, the founders, the principals. That's a big part of my formula is the people who are running it. Do they have the capacity to be open minded and take corrective criticism, to change, to pivot? I find that a lot of people are really good at what they do, but they don't know how to run a business. They don't know how to run a business. Running a business is a whole different art in itself. And so I
100%.
look at that. I look at certain businesses. I like food. I like the food business. I don't like restaurants, but I like franchises. Food makes money. I like boring business with food. Even though we did a couple AI deals, I like food. I like businesses that are scalable, franchisable, who can grow. They have to have an impact on society, a positive impact on society. We are definitely an impact-driven fund too. Food to me, people laugh. They're like, "Yeah, but food." I'm like, "Food, impact. What's more? powerful than breaking bread with people. Nothing. Like if me and you
No,
sat down and
I
got to
agree
know
with
each other
that.
over dinner. So I invest in things like that. And again, my partners, Darren Prince is he's the mega agent for celebrities and athletes, and my other partner,
Correct.
Dominique Wilkins, is a ex NBA Hall of Fame legend. Nick is a
A
legend.
world famous guy. How much money do you guys manage, if I could ask?
100 million. This is $100 million fund.
100 million. Okay, so it's a
This
small fund.
this $100 million fund. Small fund. And
Okay, but
we look to do.
it's viable, and is it somewhat
I
new?
like I like small. Yeah, it's not even 2 years old. I like small
Okay,
funds because I can keep them nimble. The
correct,
life cycle of private equity funds is 7, 10 years. I like to
correct.
make money quick. I like to get companies that generate revenue for my investors, where they don't have to wait till we exit. They can start generating. So franchises, they make a lot of money. You
Now, do you
collect
guys take
monthly.
when you say you buy companies? Do you buy companies and then run them, take them over, or do you invest money in companies and have the money working
Well,
for
we
you?
invest
Is there a
we invest
formula?
in the companies, but we get involved in help managing the company in terms of managing the managers. Um,
So, like a Shark Tank kind
I
of
try
thing,
not.
right? Where you get a piece of equity and you have an arrangement
Well,
of
we
some
give
sort.
equity. Yeah, we help them manage it. We'll help them bring the right people on to help manage it. We look at them as partners, 100%. I talk to every company that we've ever invested in. I talk to them almost every day. My whole morning, from the minute I wake up till about 12 on the clock, is all focused on
I get it.
internal companies that we own.
So
And then in the afternoon, I do my.
you guys add value. You not only
Yeah.
invest money, other people's money plus your money, but you
Oh
add
yeah,
value, correct, through your experience, through your
100%.
relationships,
We
right? Your
we
contacts.
we bring value. We bring value. We help them manage. We help them scale. The
I get
key
it.
for us is to help them scale, to grow their business. If they're doing 10 million in 4 years, we want them to be doing 50, 100
I
million.
get it.
You know
See,
what I mean? Maybe more.
right
You
now,
know what I mean?
I relate to you because I'm building a fund. I'm not just a fund. I'm building a company called Raw Media. So
Okay.
you can look at the website rawmediaofficial.com. It's really still a beta site, but we put it up for certain reasons that I can't really chat about right this second. And it's about creating my legacy because I was a flying high. I did some amazing things I accomplished within our industry, and the United States government was put on me by people within our industry, very powerful people. It's called lawfare. They actually have a name for it, and we saw them do it to President Trump after he left office to try and beat him down and hurt him and stuff like that. But I love you work with athletes, entertainers, entrepreneurs, right? All the above. As you said, some really great names. Darren Prince and Dominique Wilkins. I was a huge fan, bro. I mean, this guy
Me
was
too.
a high flyer.
Legend.
And to me now, you're a legend. You're a martial artist basically your whole life.
Appreciate
Your whole life,
Yeah.
50 years. And
55. My martial arts is I'm that before anything was. I'm a martial artist. I tell everybody, even people that invest their money, I'm a martial artist first. But martial arts
first,
has made me successful. The discipline of martial arts has made me, and the confidence that it comes with that, has made me successful.
right? And also, being in the Wall Street game as long as you've been, right? I mean, you get a certain amount of toughness to survive in that business. Not just the ups and downs of the markets, but the ups and downs of life, right? Lose,
I'm in I'm in it. I'm in this market over 35 years, 36, 37
correct.
years I'm in that
And you've
game.
lost
And I
family
never stop.
members, right? You've lost family members, divorce,
Yes.
the brutality. We all went through COVID stuff and all these different things. We get sick, and we're just human beings. So it's not just the highs and lows of the markets, but the highs and lows of life. And yet here you are, sitting here on my podcast. That means you're a friggin' winner, bro. And
Absolutely.
you're kicking ass. You're taking names. And I know that you dedicate a lot of work towards towards autism and autistic
Yes.
programs. Can you share about that real quick before we sign off?
Sure. So I created just by way of uh, accident. Someone walked into one of my dojos one time and said, "Hey, Shiam, can you help me with my son?" I said, "What's wrong?" This is 93 or 94. I said, "What's wrong with your son?" He's autistic. I go, "What's autism?" Gave me a book. I read it overnight. Guy thought I was crazy. Peter Rainbow. He thought I was crazy. I called him the next day. Said, "I think I can help him." And I did. And we started a program called SNAP, Special Needs Adapted Program. And it's been over 30 years we're doing it. We teach all around at different high level places throughout New Jersey, New York, the tri-state area. We're going to go nationwide with this thing. It's not just for autism, though. It's for any kind of neurodiverse person, because autism is a very, very unique issue.
It's a disorder.
And
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
have, there's no two people that are the same who have autism. It's very complex. And Erica, my woman, her son, her oldest son, Connor, is autistic, but he's extremely high functioning. He's like Einstein.
I get it.
He can, I mean, this kid's, she says he's either going to cure cancer or he's going to be a street sweeper. I mean, it's one of the two.
Or
And
both.
that's
Or
autism.
both.
They're both.
Yeah.
And but I'm definitely a champion of autism, but not just that. We deal with CP, cerebral palsy. I have people that work for me that have CP that actually teach in our SNAP program, and it is my greatest, really, I feel my greatest achievement, because people who have autistic children or special needs or CP, very, very difficult for them on a daily basis. And there's more support than there used to be, but we're a support system for them, not just where we teach. We're a support system for
I
them.
get that.
And I raise money through our SNAP program. It has part of it is a philanthropic event. I also have a inner city program that we teach called Sensational. We go back and teach our martial arts in the inner city as part of the school system, and we teach in Newark and a couple other places, and it helps. Growing up in the hood in the city is a vicious cycle. Very hard to get out of.
Very hard.
Very hard to
I
get
get it.
out of that. It's a vicious cycle. So we teach them the disciplines of martial arts and success. I call it Amorosi Martial Arts and Success System,
I love
because
it.
it's a success for me. It's been a success system.
I love it.
So yeah, that's a big thing. Financial literacy is a big thing for us too, through the fund. And that's why we do athletes. A lot of athletes make it to the highest echelon in finance. Some guys will make 100 million and go broke. That shouldn't happen. The people taking advantage of them and not being educated around the right people. So we want to fill that void and do the right thing by them. That's why Dominique is in. His young son, Jake, is a superstar. These kids now have NIL money. They get paid millions of
It's
dollars. And
unbelievable.
they're kids.
It's unbelievable.
They're 18.
Right.
They don't know what to do with the money. They don't want to go out and buy Ferraris. You know what
No
I mean?
clue.
And live like a.
Listen, I get it.
No clue.
I understand the whole thing.
That's all part of it.
It's an evolving dynamic, and guys like us have literally decades and decades of legit experience in this arena. And all of a sudden, I find that I'm very valuable. I have, I add real value to people. And
Listen, people who go through what you've gone through, what I've gone through, you go away for a while. You learn about yourself.
Oh, yeah.
There's no time more to find out what kind of person you are than that.
There's no question.
And especially when you feel like you were saying before, how you define what happened to you, the powers that be that come against you. I mean, there's so, it can be devastating, and yet you came out, you came out a stronger, better human, and now you're in great demand.
It's crazy. It's
You
really exciting.
You gain wisdom, and I tell people all the time, I'm like, I'm 60, I'll be 62 in a week. I feel like I'm 40. Like, I still train every day. I work all day long. It's my passion. My martial arts is my lifestyle. Working is passion for me. It's fun. It's exciting. I love deals. I love structuring. I love people. I love dealing with the people. Super smart. But you know what? It's never too late. I tell people all the time, I go, because you're 50, 60, you think you're done? You're going to retire? You're going to die. I'm going to work till the day I die. I will never stop working.
There's a great thing I saw. Some of the, people love to lambaste social media, and I think it's the most amazing thing in the history of the world. Colonel Sanders, who we all know, Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? He didn't open up Kentucky Fried Chicken until he was 65 years old. What? When you think about that,
And Rossi was turned down like 1,000
a
times from
thousand
investors.
times.
And then he just, to
And-
me,
And do you know who eats more Kentucky Fried Chicken than the rest of the world combined? Communist China. Who knew? Over 3,000 KFCs in China. And there's lines. They showed a TV thing. Lines. They line
China
up.
China is not what everybody thinks it is.
No, it isn't.
You got to remember, we are propagated to the highest level.
Our media is the biggest scam in the world. Our media. Major media is the biggest scam. Everything you see on television is agenda driven and sketchy as fuck, if you don't mind me saying like that.
I don't mind. I tell my kids all the time. I say, listen, don't believe anything.
Correct.
You hear from the news.
TV is the biggest lie ever.
You do your own research.
Correct.
I said, you want, and the world is at your fingertips now with a phone, which is not a phone. It's a computer we talk to.
It's a computer.
I said, anything you want is right here at your fingertips. Be your own best observer, analyst, researcher.
Now, I love to ask this question as we're getting ready to wrap up. James, and I feel like you, James, to me. To me, that's an honor. When I call somebody by their full name, I'm usually I'll be calling you Jimmy or Jay by the end of a podcast, but you've earned my respect at the highest level. I sincerely mean that.
Thank you.
James,
thank you. Likewise.
We've established you're a kid, really, physically, the whole thing. 5 years from today, what do you want? What are we going to see from James Amorosi in the next 5 years? 5 years from today, where are you going to be?
Great question. I already see where I'm at. I'm in a process right now of acquiring a farm, 113-acre farm.
I love it.
And I'm going to make it the compound. So when they come, I have a place to go.
I hope you're going to invite me. I hope I have an invitation.
Brother, you got an open invitation. You come up anytime.
I'm going to take it one day. I'm going to show up.
I'm going to put like a 20,000 square foot barn dough on it. This whole thing.
I love it.
Right? I got it all figured out.
I love it.
We're going to do hydroponic farming. I was just up there last week. I'm driving out. So it's about 200 yards of gravel road. And, big bear comes running out of the road. And
wow.
It's wild. But I envision spending a lot of time there, building this thing up. I really want to do this hydroponic farming. The fund, I think by then I probably have 5 or 10 funds.
I love it.
That we're managing, and bigger. I want to go bigger. I think I want to start building up a bigger fund where I buy and sell publicly traded companies.
Why not? Why not?
Why not? And it's a passion I have. I feel like my martial arts organization's exploding even bigger. I've been at it for 35 years, but I was just telling the guys I have guys who will be 35 years.
I love
to teach from me and train.
That says a lot about you, by the way. That says a lot about you.
Thank you. I said, you know what? I have more desire and passion to teach today than I did 30 years ago. I love teaching. Like I have a thing called ammo flow, softing. It's like Tai Chi. I created this 25 years ago. We teach seniors this, man. And it's a combination of yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, Kundalini, is breathing and movement. I go and teach, and I wasn't teaching for a while. I started teaching again. Nothing really fulfills my soul like that. It's such a peace and Zen moment. So I think a lot more of that. I think I want to do a lot more with the SNAP program with autism.
I love that, James. I love that, by the way. I love that.
Much more. Ross, 1 in 6 kids now. 1 in 6 kids. You're going to tell me it's not chemicals in our food and our.
Of course it is.
Of course, you don't have to be a genius.
Trump has been screaming
and
about it now, and RFK Jr. It's these
well,
forced
that's
vaccines, all
100%,
this nonsense
100%.
they put in our food. You go to
My
Publix, sit
first
down,
son,
you can't buy
Ross,
anything. It's all poison.
my first son, I didn't let him get a lot of the vaccines. They're like, Mr. Morosi, he went to private school. They're like, Mr. Morosi, you have to get that. I go, no, it's against my religion. That's what I said. It's against my religion.
I like that. You
You know what?
know, I
I refuse.
listen. I'm in prison, and they call us down to medical, like 60 or 80 of us in one shot, and they said today you're going to be getting vaccines. Now we can't make you get the vaccines, but I'm not going to pull any punches. They say if you don't get the vaccine, if you don't want a vaccine, stand over there. You're losing your commissary, your visitation, your phone, your email, or they taking away all your privileges. So
They blackmail you.
they forced you to
They
do it. No,
blackmail.
they forced you to do it. You're forced to do it. They put you in a cell with no air conditioning. I mean, you have no idea how disgusting and corrupt it is. You can just imagine how corrupt the free world is. Imagine when they got you locked up and nobody cares and no one's looking. So after 2 or 3 days after they give everybody in this place, 1,100 people, they gave this Johnson & Johnson vaccine. They get on national television and say, well, we're suspending the Johnson & Johnson vaccine because it's killing people and causing blood clots and heart failure and strokes. And we had guys dropping dead in this building. I'm not exaggerating. 6 people in 1 week dropped dead. And this is what's going on behind the scenes, right? So somehow I lived and survived through all that, but believe me, I think the work you're doing is magnificent. Magnificent.
Thank you.
Financial
Appreciate
literacy, this SNAP program,
Likewise.
teaching autistic and disadvantaged, disabled type of kids, the value of martial arts, the beauty of martial arts, the training, the discipline, the repetition. I love it.
Ross, something that's passion. I've been about a year and a half talking to Darren, one of my partners, about this, Darren Prince. I'm going to put together, I was reluctant because I feel like there's a takeaway from me. I want to put together a financial program, a course for people to educate them on investing and living in the financial realm. What kind of checking account, where you should put your money, what kind of savings, what kind of retirement. People don't know these things in this day and age. And I thought about that. So I'm thinking of you. Me and you got to talk.
Well, listen, I want to share this with you. I've created a program already. It's the most comprehensive business program in the history of the world. I'm going to have my people send it to you.
Please.
Because this is something that we could do together. We could push it out, launch it. I'm willing to share it. We can work something out. You understand like that. This should be the curriculum for every business program in every school in the entire world. And I'm happy to share it with you guys. Now that we know each other, I think you guys will be blown away. It's 118 pages. There are 14 chapters with accompanying videos. Where I actually talk about, I walk you through the things as I learned them during the course of my career, my life, my time on the street, et cetera, and so forth. It's entertaining. It's cool, but you learn, and there's hyperlinks to source material, so you know it's real and true blue. And I just want to say what a privilege it was getting to meet you today. I really mean that. It's
and your wife, Stephanie.
Yeah,
right. Your wife.
She's my ex-wife, she's my ex-wife, but we're best friends and very close.
Love it. I love it.
I did very well in the marriage, and I'm very grateful.
Good.
And she's a real Italian stocker. We have beautiful children.
That's a blessing.
And she's a magnificent woman. She's beautiful to this minute, and I love her to death, and we're very close and partners.
I told her I wanted to come down. I couldn't get away today, but I wanted to come down. So we got to get together and break bread and shake hands.
It's about to be very cold up where you are. And dark.
I got to come down.
So when you come down, you make sure you reach out to me. After we sign off, I'm going to trade. We'll trade information. After we sign off.
All right, perfect.
So listen, let me say goodbye right now, but stay on afterwards. And I just want to say what an exciting life you've lived, a life of sort of discipline, and you came from nothing, just a nice family values, and that were instilled in you back when you're in Newark, New Jersey, when you were a youngster, going through life in the 60s and 70s. And what a privilege it was for myself and for my audience to get to meet you today. Thank you, James.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It was such an honor. I really enjoyed it. You and I have some great things to do together.
Thank you.